Hello everybody, this is Taranga Pereira from MYOB, here to present the MYOB Advanced 2021.1 release webinar for Manufacturing Edition. The key manufacturing enhancements in 2021.1, which we'll be discussing in the next few minutes, will be in the areas of the Capable to Promise functionality, the enhanced scheduling of work center capacity, and also several workflow improvements, such as the improved link between production orders and sales orders, as well as introduction of a production warehouse location attribute, and also the enhancements to the automation steps related to ECRs and engineering change orders. Now let's look at the Capable to Promise feature in the Manufacturing Edition. The typical scenario for sales teams is that they need to provide a firm commitment to customers at the point of sales order entry as far as their fabrication is concerned, or when they can deliver. This is now possible using the Capable to Promise or CTP function, which allows the sales team to actually confirm that the production can meet the requested date or allow for a partial delivery if required. And furthermore, it does provide a more accurate and realistic date to be quoted at the point of accepting the sales order. In order to use the Capable to Promise feature, we need to follow a few configuration steps beforehand. First of all, ensure that the advanced planning and schedule feature is already enabled. Thereafter, you'll need to create a special planning order specifically for CTP processing, which is excluded for MRP purposes. And you need to update the production preferences in the new CTP planning order type. And also, lastly, you need to update all stock items which you require planning for CTP and tag it as a CTP item in the manufacturing step in the stock item screen. We'll now run through those steps momentarily, and I'll show you a brief demo shortly on how the CTP functionality works. So you'll need to ensure that the advanced planning and scheduling is activated and enable disable features for manufacturing, specifically this one. And then you will need to create a production order type, which is enabled for planning function. And ideally I'd recommend a different numbering sequence and exclude this from MRP as well. Once you have done that, you can basically go into production preferences and make sure that you select that order type, which you just created for the Capable to Promise order type under data entry settings. The last step for each of the inventory items which you need to plan for CTP, you would need to enable that stock items attribute, one of the attributes I'm about to show. So if I take the example of the bicycle again, on the manufacturing tab, there will now be an extra checkbox to make sure it's tagged as a CTP item, so it will be part of that process. So that concludes all the steps required for configuring, and now we'll move on to the workflow demo. We're now in a customer sales order where the customer has requested a manufactured item to be delivered on the 1st of June. Now we shall attempt to run the CTP process, which will open up a separate window to allowing it to process the CTP. If I hit process all, it will run through the current manufacturing schedule and project a date, the earliest which will be available for shipment. There you can see the date's been updated, as well as a planning order based on the previous configuration, which will allow us to either accept or reject this CTP order. And you can also view the quantity available currently for delivery. If the customer is urgently in need of this, we can meet two numbers of that quantity, of the requested order quantity of 5. It also gives us the total available production available by the requested date as well. So it gives a quick snapshot of what are the alternatives we can offer the customer. If we choose to reject it, we can hit reject and hit process all. In this case, I will accept it and hit process, which will in the background create a regular production order, converting this planning order into a regular production order, and add it to the production schedule, and update the sales order. It will also show the original request date for record purposes, but if I close this, it will now update the sales order accordingly. There you go, and it will also create the production order link automatically for you. Now let's take a look at the new enhancements to the capacity scheduling in Manufacturing Edition. In the new release, the work center crew size is now taken into consideration for resource scheduling when running rough cut planning. And we also have the ability to allow for changes in crew size, allowing for changes in efficiency due to learning curve effects, for example, or for changes in crew availability and crew numbers. This also extends the ability to view, there's a new inquiry screen, all the work center crew schedule, which shows potential bottlenecks. To allow for this, we have the new work center capacity computation using the following logic, which incorporates crew size and efficiency, as mentioned earlier, which allows you to change these parameters for each work center for each shift. In order to use the enhanced scheduling of work center capacity, we need to make sure that the advanced planning and scheduling feature is enabled, and also to update the production preference to use the shift crew size, and also ensure that all work centers we need to schedule have the basis for capacity as set as crew size, as well as having for each shift the crew size and efficiencies updated. In order to configure for the work center capacity to reflect efficiencies, you'll need to update the production preferences to enable to use crew shift size right here. Make sure you save that. Keep in mind this won't be effective if advanced planning and scheduling is not enabled, but we'll assume that it has been. The next steps are in terms of configuring your work centers, which you may have already created. You have to double check whether all of them do have the basis for capacity as crew size, and also has an efficiency which can multiply the crew size as well instead of 0. So that will populate your basis for capacity. Now let's take a look at how this impacts the scheduling workflow. We can see here the work center schedule for a particular work center, and you can see there's one or a couple of production orders lined up, and there's this one with 2.5 hours. We will now go into schedule for 2.5 hours, and thereafter there's another production order for 2 hours as well. So what we're going to do is change the assembly work center to allow for some new crew which is coming on board. So 2 crew, and then I can drop the efficiency by 25%. So this should be taken into consideration when we run rough cut planning. Let's schedule that. So it'll take a couple of seconds to reschedule all of that. That's just one error, that's okay. Let's go back and refresh this and keep an eye on the schedule time. You can see that schedule time has changed based on that capacity change I did for the assembly work center. That change can also be reflected in the new work center schedule, which is here as well, which actually gives you the start time, end times, and crew size and crew shortages, which can also be changed at a shift level as an informational field. You can basically, if you assign 2 for that shift for the day, it'll basically update that column and show you potential bottlenecks in that as a static view. Some other workflow improvements have been made in this release, such as the improved sales order to production linking, production warehouse location attribute, and also the automation steps related to engineering change requests and change orders, and supplier shipments. We also have minor improvements to the rough cut planning screen, and also some tabs having been renamed, which we'll quickly run through in the next few minutes. Previously in MYOB Advanced, you were able to create a link from a sales order to a production order only in the event when you create a production order using the production order option from the sales order screen, which actually prevented you from maintaining any cross-references when you create production orders using the MRP function based on sales order demand. But now you're able to establish those links using the link production order button on the sales order screen, and basically selecting any production order which meets the criteria in terms of the product or the manufactured item which is being selected in a in-process, released, or a planned status, which allows you to establish that link. You can also establish this from the production maintenance screen as well, which allows you to select the relevant sales order line. From the production manager's perspective, they're also able to remove the link and reestablish, as before, as earlier mentioned, to maintain that traceability. In previous versions of MYOB Advanced, warehouse locations were defined for manufacturing using the assembly allowed option for each location, which was shared with the kit assembly transactions as well. From 2021.1, there is a new field for production allowed, which is exclusively used for manufactured items as opposed to kitting. For customers who are upgrading from previous versions, the state of production allowed will be the same as assembly allowed checkbox. And for new installations, the default, by default, all warehouse locations will have a production allowed, allowing you to use that for manufacturing purposes. When the upgraded version, with the changes to the workflow automation engine, you notice that the next logical actions have been added to the top menu bar, and the on hold checkboxes have been replaced with this new functionality. This affects the engineering change request as well as the engineering change order forms, giving the user the next logical steps in the workflow. These are also available in the Actions drop-down as before. The other form which is affected is the supplier shipment screen. Previously, when using the rough cut planning screen to schedule orders, production schedulers were unable to easily exclude planning orders. But now in the new screen, you are now able to use the exclude planning orders option to actually exclude all planning order types from this screen before scheduling. This has been introduced due to the fact of CTP, or capable to promise feature, which uses planning orders to build out capacity, and this function allows you to exclude that when scheduling. Previously, the tab known as allocations in the production screens have been all renamed as line details in the new version, and this has impacted all material movements, labor components which has allocations, basically being replaced by this line details button, which performs the same functionality as before. That brings us to the end of this webinar. Hope that was informative. There's further information as always in the release notes, and you can always reach out to us if you have any further queries. Thank you.